10x your service design offering with Smapply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smapply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smapply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hey folks, I'm delighted to bring you 2 exclusive interviews from a very special event that I attended recently in Nuremberg in Germany called Teaming with AI. Now, a few weeks ago, as I was driving to Northern Ireland, I mentioned to my wife about an event that my friends Markus Hormess, Lawrence and Florian Bailey were hosting. Now, I didn't expect to be given a free pass to attend this from the family, but it came, and I didn't ask a second time. Now, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with AI, folks. I enjoy reading about it, but I can foresee some massive transformations that are likely to occur. Not in the future, but right here, right now. I hadn't really sat down and given the impact that much thought, other than I know it's extremely likely, and this event gave me time to pause, connect and reflect and review the changes in macro level detail. Now, what was of most interest to me was how it can change how we design, but more to the point, how it is likely to change design. I gave an hour session at the conference on how This Is HCD has been leaning into AI since 2018. Now, most of the edits that you hear on the podcast are trained on my voice, meaning we have presets for my microphone that I have at home, and you even have the ability to edit what I say using a trained AI on my Mac to make those small changes here and there. Pretty cool, huh? But back to design. Well, I was in a workshop led by our guest today in this episode, Steffi Kieffer. Now, she is an independent practitioner and facilitates design thinking type workshops, design sprints, etc., and has been using AI a lot more than most within their work. And we go deeper into this. Just how are they using AI and what AI pieces are they using? So if you listen to the entire episode, you'll get an overview of just how much change is upon us. Now, we used a basic 5-step design process and reviewed how, where and when AI can be applied and what the likely outcomes are at each stage. Now, quite simply, this is a must listen for anyone on the tools or anyone within any strategic function in business today. Let's get into it. And we're recording. Steffi, I'm delighted to have you here on This Is HCD. I'm here with Steffi Kieffer in the Nuremberg Teaming with AI conference or unconference that my good friends Lawrence and Florian and Markus Hormess have been organising. But Steffi, for our listeners, maybe start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and where you're from and what you do.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I'm Steffi. I'm a UX designer, design thinking coach, but I also have a chatbot for addiction recovery. So many...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do.
Wow.
So we built that 2 years ago, but it's now even more exciting with the new technology.
Well, we'll try and get into that with a little bit more information. Are you based here in Nuremberg?
I'm actually based in Munich, south of Munich, near the Ammersee.
Ah, okay, very good, very good. So the topic that we were exploring there in your talk was enhancing the design thinking process with AI tools. And it was brilliant because it was exactly what I was looking for from this event. I was trying to understand how it could be seen as a partner or even a nemesis potentially to the design process. So maybe let's start off and talk, what's your experience in this area?
Well, I've been experimenting now for quite some time how to incorporate AI into the design thinking process to make it even better and to extract the most potential out of this. To give you a bit of background, normally I'm running an awful lot of workshops or design sprints. So this is sort of the main activities I do. And I try to basically increase productivity, but also outcomes. And I was experimenting, and I'm happy to share some of those findings that came out of this from the last few months.
You mentioned there you wanted to make it better. Describe what better means.
Better means in terms of collaboration as a team, but also in terms of outcomes. Because often
business
outcomes, generally solution outcomes, and how to measure those. And basically, just use the superpowers and adapt them to the design thinking process.
Okay. So let's start off. Like, you've got a number of slides here, which we may or may not be able to include in the show notes.
Absolutely.
But the first step in the process, let's talk, phase zero. What do you call phase zero in your process?
Yeah, phase zero is everything that happens before we actually start workshopping and engaging in the team workshops. So it's all the preparation work where you sort of define the goals, you define the outcomes, you have stakeholder interviews, you basically become an expert in whatever you're trying to do. And seeing that I'm often an external person entering companies or different industries where I'm not an expert of those industries, I have to get up to speed very, very quickly. There's a lot of learning. Rapid learning is the key. So before, you spend a lot of time in stakeholder interviews, you spend a lot of time in meetings, you spend a lot of time researching the topic. There's only so much time you can invest in this. And now with using the new AI tools that are out there, you can accelerate. So how are you doing it? Come on, let's hit us. Let's give us the secret sauce. What are you using to get up to speed? Like, obviously ChatGPT is the one that people are kind of most aware of, the OpenAI chat bot, or not chat bot, but you know what I mean. So what are you using to get up to speed in phase zero? I usually start with Bing AI, which is based on GPT-4, to just get an understanding of the problem space, of the areas, of the industry, because what I like about Bing AI is that you can have a different mode. You can have the creative mode, but you can also have the precise mode with the actual, sources of the information, because I'm, still got to learn how to trust the AI, and I'm a critical person, so I do want to know where it's coming from.
I've learned something new already. Bing AI, like, I've just been using ChatGPT, and that whole process of understanding the origin and the process of how things got to where it is really, really important. And that usually is very prevalent in the human interaction of when we're creating these things, when we're understanding these things. So it's good that Bing AI has still included that in the process as opposed to it being binary.
Yeah. There's also a difference between using the free model, the ChatGPT 3 model, which is based, I think, on 3.5. There's a huge difference between that model and the new one, the GPT-4. I've heard rumors say that a GPT-4 will have web integration at some point. So this is going to come. But anyway, this is sort of the go-to source for me to get an understanding of a particular customer segment or an industry, identifying the sort of potential problems they're currently having as part of the challenge, and basically actually running through the entire design thinking process. So understanding customer problems, exploring different routes, understanding the needs, the jobs to be done, all of this, until I actually come to problem statements. And what I normally do is I go into ideation as well to see what potential solutions might come out of this.
Right.
To the point where I actually take on the leadership perspective to validate, to let leadership perspective basically prioritize the ideas. So I have quite a lot of information in my backpack, which I then bring to the stakeholder interviews or stakeholder briefing calls to bounce it back off with them. And the learnings are basically that we can do much better scope refinement and agreeing on outcomes and successful metrics to look at. So
the potential there is to increase the quality of those early calls, really. But the potential there for you as an independent consultant is to capitalize on the efficiency gain in terms of monetary value. Is that something that people tend to explore more of, do you think, in terms of being able to leverage the AI capabilities to get to A to B much quicker and bill more?
Some people might do that. In my case, actually, it wasn't such a productivity gain in terms of I spent less time on it because it's a giant rabbit hole and you sort of end up feeling lost in all sorts of different directions, and it's really about time boxing and just spending just the right amount of time.
So phase zero, there's a couple of other ones there that you mentioned in the talk, Humata.ai. Maybe tell us a little bit about that, because I hadn't heard of it.
Yeah, Humata AI and Illicit, those are AI tools where you can upload basically PDF documents. So for example, if there are any studies that have been published and which tend to be quite long and time consuming to go through, so you can just upload it and it summarizes, and you can ask any kind of questions because they've got ChatGPT integration, and it summarizes it for you. You can go into questioning certain aspects, so it's quite a useful tool to get a very quick idea of research papers. It's amazing.
So do you have to pay for Humata.ai?
I'm on the free version. I think probably if you use it a lot, there's probably a paid version.
And what about Bing AI? Is that a paid?
Bing AI is free.
Free, okay.
And ChatGPT, there's a free version, but if you have GPT-4, which I highly recommend, actually. You have to pay for it.
I started paying for ChatGPT a couple of months ago, and it's worth it.
Yeah.
So after phase 0, what's the next phase for you? What do you call it? Because you're using a 5-step process.
Yeah. Before I actually go into the workshop, there's, of course, the workshop preparation. So even for that step, you can use ChatGPT to prepare your agenda design, getting some structure to the workshop. However, you do have to still know what you're doing, because otherwise GPT might suggest you an agenda which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So curation is key here, but it's a good basis to accelerate actually the process. And if you do have slides to show, automatic slide generation works wonderfully.
Really, yeah? Wow.
Yes and no. It depends, again, what quality of slides you prefer. If you want a long list of text, then, go to Tome AI, for example.
So what was the one there that you're saying it creates the slides for you? Was that?
Well, there's Tome AI and Beautiful AI. Personally, I don't use any of those because I'm not a big fan of long blocks of text on slides. I prefer to just have, a couple of keywords and that's it. However, I do like using visuals to create the story. And I'm a big fan of using Midjourney for that. So for me, stock photos are dead. I will never ever use stock photos again.
Okay.
Never.
Yeah. So with Midjourney, whenever I've used it, people's faces are always a bit distorted, and I seem to be getting kind of mixed results. What's the secret to getting a good visual for your slides with Midjourney? You must have some hot tips.
Well, using version 5 instead of 4 gets rid of the finger problem. So we can actually, human beings have 5 fingers now, which is really nice.
Yeah, nice.
And actually using really good prompts. I mean, really good is a big topic. But I think looking at what other people are producing, and if you like the results, you can copy paste the prompts using different camera angles, photography styles, and I think this is where creativity comes in, because you can mix all sorts of styles, 70s retro together with futuristic things in Polaroid.
Interesting. Because I'm going to call out one of your prompts here that has a really pretty cool floating post-its with a group of people. Looks like they're interacting with the floating post-its in a field of flowers. Okay. And I'm going to read the prompt out. It says Midjourney prompt, which is the group of people writing on colorful sticky notes floating in the air in a field of flowers, retro-futuristic 1970s, full-body portrait, Polaroid photo, V5, which is V5 is obviously Midjourney 5, yeah? And that gave you that result, which is, it looks like it's a staged photograph. You literally couldn't tell the difference, which is a really cool visual to go alongside the workshop design slide, which you create, and that's one of the huge benefits of this. Yeah. That stock photograph thing. Did you have to pay for the use of that?
You can use up to, I actually don't quite know, I think up to 20 images you can use for free. You don't have to pay. No, just generally. We used it up in one evening, sitting on the sofa. It's like, oh, let's create another image. Oh, let's create another one. Oh, it's all gone now, our credit. But then I think it's $10 a month for a subscription.
Bad. No. Yeah, not that bad. Okay, so workshop design, and then you're talking about a 3x gain, is that right?
Yeah, it's a 3x gain for me. Mainly, it could have been much quicker, but mainly it's a giant happy rabbit hole where you get lost, at least in the beginning. So it's exploring the wonderful avenues. So time boxing, I think, is absolutely crucial in the preparation.
How do you time box? You've mentioned time being an important factor here when you're designing. Is there any systems that you're using to help time box your time and effort?
I think it's my own personal instinct of, I haven't slept, I haven't read, I haven't eaten. Okay, maybe it's time to move on to something else now. Yes, I have client work and a family who keeps breathing. So
I've started using Flow. Have you ever heard of Flow? Where you can use the system. I can't remember the name of the system. Where I think it was Einstein that created. You can time box 20-minute increments, then a 5-minute break, 20-minute, and then a 5-minute break, and then you get a longer break. Which is a nice one. I've mentioned it on the podcast before. But anyway, I didn't mean to deviate too much. Absolutely. A giant rabbit hole. Yeah. Managing the rabbit hole is really, really important.
Yeah, I actually have an Aura ring in it. My phone starts buzzing after an hour that I have to move around. So usually that's quite a good indicator.
Nice.
That I've been stable.
Yeah. So lessons learned, from that whole point, as we said, we don't get down the rabbit hole. But then you move into the next stage.
Absolutely.
Which most people would be like, when are we going to start doing research? So walk me through how you see AI sitting within research, because this is a very
sort of a debatable topic. Traditionally, it's been very human-led, understanding the nuances of human behavior, understanding the facial expressions, understanding reading the room, all of these things. How have you been using AI in research?
Yeah, absolutely. Big topic. I think the first distinction we have to make is this separating qualitative or quantitative research.
Yeah. Okay.
For quantitative research, where you have a whole bunch of data in a spreadsheet or feedback from users, I think it's a very different story because you don't see them, you don't hear them, you can't feel them.
Yeah.
So it's much easier to use AI to synthesize it and generate insights from it.
Yeah.
And see patterns emerging. With qualitative user research, it's much more difficult, I personally think, to use AI in a way that it's really beneficial. However, what I've seen, what we've used is I think it can accelerate the process immensely. Just by using, for example, you go out, you run your interviews. Ideally, you have some kind of transcript afterwards, so whether it's speech to text, so some kind of a documentation of the interview process. Where it's really beneficial is that if you do sort of a first analysis using AI, so not having any sensitive data and basically you have to remove all of this, but we have to remove that anyway in user research. But getting a first stab or a rough draft in clustering sort of the main topics according to maybe activities or what the person is thinking or feeling, or actually not so much that, but principles the person is doing, activities the person is doing. So get a first idea. If we completely replace it, we can use GPT-4 to completely, automate that process of generating insights, doing sentiment analysis, generating, clustering for various topics.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that especially if we work together as a team, you lose the empathy as part of the team. You lose the alignment in the team. You lose, the feeling of
the ownership.
The ownership, yeah, and the subtle meaning that happens in between what people say. That's you lose that, and I think it would be a shame to.
If you lose that, you lose pretty much everything. Really, the purpose
exactly
is kind of being sort of diluted an awful lot.
Yeah,
I feel sad when we're talking about this piece because it's something that I realize is probably inevitable, but at the same time, we must fight to retain that. We must fight to retain the human aspect of things as much as possible. You mentioned there about the difference between qualitative and quantitative. In quantitative, it's much easier, but in qualitative, how are you seeing AI being used?
In transcribing?
Transcribing, but in terms of, we were discussing earlier around the sentiment analysis and the nuances of the human delivery in terms of linguistic delivery. And that's often, at the moment, it's been overlooked. And when you're transcribing even the podcast episodes, folks, or your interviews, it doesn't include that, the inflections, the likelihood of it being a joke or any of that kind of stuff. Someone mentioned Whisper.ai as being a potential integration into ChatGPT. Is that something that you've seen or ever played around with?
I haven't yet, but I'm dying to do that.
Yeah. I know I've used IBM Watson and a number of years ago, 2016, maybe even earlier, to text sentiment analysis of blocks of text. But it'd be really interesting to see what that looks like and how that information can actually lead to more informed and better outcome research results. And Markus here, who's been on the podcast several times before, folks, mentioned about John Maida, who is using AI in the research phase at the moment to generate tangible, ideated concepts and include them at the end of their sessions. That turnaround time used to take us weeks, as you know, from going from research into ideation and back around, whereas John Maida was saying it was taking about a minute, I think it was. So that loop that used to take weeks is now down to minutes to generate ideas, which I don't know how I feel about it, but the potential there to introduce those concepts back to an actual person from the source, potentially of the research that we're trying to match that problem and solution to, is probably huge.
It's
the value is
mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it literally, I imagine it could freak out participants based on the problem they're talking about. It's a little bit of a Houdini, like, ta-da, would this work? Yeah. And getting their granular feedback and being able to understand that could be pretty cool.
It probably creates also new roles within the user research community. So you have the person running the interviews, you have the note taker, and you might have, the AI analyst, who's sitting there and running the AI tools on the side and prompting and looking for gaps. And
I mean, ethically, that opens up a huge gap because, if I've mentioned something about my life and it's used that in the cloud very quickly and generated a problem off the back of that, the de-anonymization of the data before it hits the cloud is going to be a role, because if you've signed a waiver or a consent form and you're saying you're going to be using AI, we're not going to be capturing certain information, but we are going to post it to generate ideas and then delete it, you're probably going to get a little bit of pushback, I'd say, from participants. What do you think?
I'm not sure. It probably depends on the participant. It depends on the age group. If it's like, a younger person, they probably might not care. Depends on how you grow up with data.
True.
We do have still a lot to discuss and there's a lot to learn on that area. So
yeah, well, let's see how that unfolds for us. So after the research piece, the productivity gain of 12x. And sorry, folks, if you hear the music in the background. Adam Lawrence is currently doing his Rocky impression, working in a workshop. He's like one of those pretty girls walking around with a timer above his head, like 4 minutes left. So anyway, we'll move back to this conversation. The productivity gain is 12x, you're saying, within the research phase.
Yeah. So basically, research analysis, if you do it in a team, live in a workshop, it could take up to 1.5 hours, 2 hours.
Easy. Per session.
Per session. Easily. And it's a fraction of the time if you let, GPT take care of it.
Wow.
But again, what's the goal? Do you want to create empathy and alignment and ownership in the team, or do you just want to get the data processed? Speed. So that's the main thing.
So let's move on to the next one. So, you're talking here after research, we're moving into ideation, and myself and Florian, one of the organizers of the conference here, were Florian Bailey. We were talking about ideation, and instantly we said there's probably not enough steps in ideation. We had to break that down into certain points. And we were talking about a 3-step process to really improve the problem framing piece up front and provide much more context to the problem framing. And we could have as many facets as we want in there of the problem framing to enable context. And we were talking about it being more like levers that you dial up and dial down in terms of the problem framing. And we imagine it could probably generate concepts pretty quickly using what's available at the moment, Midjourney and whatnot. But then we would set out the curation process about what is it we're trying to achieve here. Is it a business value? Is it monetization? Is it profitability? Whatever those factors are. How do you see it? Like this was myself and Florian speculating, but how are you using AI currently in your workshops?
So currently, I'd say in workshops, it wasn't used very well. Because we just inserted it into the normal creative process. Okay. So it's just another tool. And I think we failed. We generated 0 new ideas.
Okay.
We lost people on the way. They got trapped in the world of ChatGPT and we're never seen again afterwards.
Asking questions about everything.
So I think the place of AI is a bit different. Probably more at the beginning, where we sort of level out an entire field and run through different routes, or later on when we evaluate ideas and do deep dives. But not as part of the actual creative, human ideation process.
Right.
The other ideas maybe, separate that or look at the ideation process from a very different way, that we do have sort of a creative team, a designer team, playing around with the tools, exploring different options before we then open up in a more cross-functional team to get some, input from different perspectives, from the engineers, from the business people, to build on one another's ideas. So it might, it's going to change, I think, because we will use AI tools because we can accelerate and we can just generate so many more ideas. And I mean, the quantity, having more quantity, normally produces better outcomes in the long run.
So there's probably a mini step. If you imagine research and ideation coming after research, and if we're talking about what Markus was telling us about John Maida, where he was using, it might be research and ideation or research ideation coming in one phase, and then afterwards it's clarifying. You've increased the quality of what might work from those research sessions if you're including them in that kind of phase, the research ideation phase, as I'm just coming up in the spot with. But you've mentioned some tools there like Synapse. What does that look like?
Well,
What do you do with it?
It basically is also ChatGPT based, but you write down your problem space, your problem statement, and customer segment, and it generates ideas, but not sort of the obvious ideas. It sort of chucks in random. It combines new systems, it combines new ideas together. Like I guess adding a bit of different perspectives or different analogies, which might spark new ideas. So it's like a stepping stone to different directions of that you might not have thought of.
So at the moment, it's really leveraging AI as a springboard in ideation, is what I'm hearing. Is that right? So as opposed to like what myself and Florian and Tina were exploring, was really about how we could actually leverage it and include it, almost like a new team member to do the heavy lifting. But we still see a huge emphasis on curation there, like the curation process, to be able to select the ideas and also have the human ownership of the idea as well. I know I was chatting a little bit more around that, as opposed to it not being an AI generated idea. It's an idea that the person behind it has actually helped curate. So after ideation, we then started talking about prototyping, and yourself and Markus were working on this space. Do you want to tell us how you're currently using AI in prototyping?
Well, that's still happening a lot. I mean, it's quite a new space. What is interesting, there's a lot of new beta versions you can sign up for. Tools like Wizard and Get Galileo, which promise basically scribble to interface.
Okay,
automation.
I've seen that. Yeah.
So in part of the areas of digital product design, I think we're going to see quite a lot happening at the moment.
Yeah.
With prototyping, it depends on if you have a team, like a dedicated team with AI literacy working on it, where they can just generate more and more and more, or whether you're in a situation where you're in a workshop and you don't, you've got to keep things simple. It's more for optimizing the experience of the people there, creating an alignment, using rapid prototyping tools. So you do have to be aware of that, and depending on which situation, use different kind of tools.
Sure.
Because integrating complex new AI tools in a workshop scenario doesn't work. It would just frustrate everyone.
Yeah, complicate things.
Yeah. But what might happen actually, what could be interesting is, after the user research, you might create personas, your user profiles in ChatGPT, and then later on during prototyping, you can use that data or that persona, generated persona, to feedback the idea to and have it as a critic. Basically, or like just as a synthetic user to play back. So you have an immediate iteration round.
That's pretty cool when you think about it. One of the things that I've used over the years is video prototyping to walk through service models and service diagrams, basic, and how people are going to interact with the services. And I've used real world video teams and editors and stuff. But over the last number of months, I've been using Descript, which allows me to generate a script, a typed script, and then generate my voice using AI. And then I'm able to pull in from maybe 250,000 videos that I have to match them up basically, and how I can tell the story a little bit. Do you know of any AI tools out there that can generate video-based content based on prompts?
It's not really my area. There are loads there. I'd have to actually look it up.
Okay, because that would be really cool if you create a script and it could start putting together like the B roll and the A roll for your videos. If anyone's got any ideas for that, folks, feel free to email in. The link is in the show notes. So overall, where do you see the next 6 months going for AI and the design process?
It's absolutely,
because it's changing in weeks.
It's changing daily. It's probably as we speak. Where we see it happening, I think the people who are interested, the people who are motivated, the people who are intrinsically motivated, they will just thrive on it. And we might lose a whole bunch of people on the way because they either scared or they don't want to, or they don't even know. So I think we're going to see a widening gap in the beginning. I think the gap will close.
Yeah.
I'm a bit afraid of the amount of change, but also the content that's being created. And actually, it reminds me a little bit of the good old days, in Photoshop, where they, filters were all of a sudden the big rage, and everyone was using blurry type and neon glow filters, and it feels a bit like that. So I think it's going to level out, and we're going to see some really nice quality coming out of this.
Yeah. Hopefully, like as you said, we're probably going to lose an awful lot of people in the industry to this. But what advice do you give to people, who might be sitting on the fence, kind of going, "Look, I know about it. I've heard you speak about it, Jerry, or whatever." What advice do you give to people and just getting started?
Get started. Start playing with it. Sign up for the accounts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so exciting what's out there. And if you don't play with it, somebody else will. And it's leveling up the playing field. I mean, you have actually no choice, I think.
Yeah.
Go and play with it. It's super exciting. I think we have to have conversations about it. Because there's always, to a good side, there's always a bad side. So
absolutely.
Which we won't touch on.
Well, maybe we'll bring you back on in 6 months and see where things are at. Because it's great to have connected with you here, Steffi, and I really enjoyed working alongside you in the last workshop. If people want to reach out to you and learn more about your business, how can they do that?
Well, on LinkedIn, it's the easiest. Steffi Kieffer.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Absolutely, or on email or whatever social media, you'll find me. You just
awesome.
Google me.
We'll put a couple of links into the show notes, folks. Thank you so much for your time, Steffi.
Great for having me.